Welcome back. This is Tucker. Let's talk weather. Erin is officially a hurricane, and it continues to gain strength as it approaches the U.S. We're looking into the chances that this makes landfall and the other impacts you should be prepared for. Good to see all of you guys here. Hope you're having a nice week. I'd like to introduce you to now Hurricane Erin, and this is going to be undergoing a lot more strengthening over the next several days. Now, lucky for you guys, I got places to be today, so we're going to keep this video short and sweet, just a little over 5 minutes. We'll get into all the info that you need to know, and I'm going to give you the latest on how strong this gets and the path it takes. And even if it's not one that brings landfall where you are, the secondary impacts that will come along with the storm. Here's the latest track from the National Hurricane Center, and they're also calling for a Category 4 storm. Now, these tracks get updated every 3 hours, so by the time you're watching this, it may look a little different, but more or less, what we're expecting, the key points here, are that this is going to become a major hurricane over the weekend, and as it continues to approach the Bahamas out here, it's eventually going to make a turn northwards. But how sharp that turn is, whether it moves a little bit more on the western side of this or the eastern side, will have some very big implications on impacts even in the US. So we'll talk about those impacts right now. First, I'm going to start us off with Erin's strength, though, because that really puts a lot of this into context. What you're looking at next to me is a chart depicting its strength over time. I'll make it a little easier for you to read here, and here's hour 48. So in 2 days from now, most of our weather data suggesting it's going to be a Category 3 storm. Makes a lot of sense to me because it's in an area without a lot of wind shear, and that's good for hurricanes. The water's very warm too. Now you'll see some of these model forecasts bring it to a low-end Category 4 here, especially as we get into early next week. We're looking at Monday right here and even Tuesday. Will it get to Category 4? Yeah, it's possible. Because it will be encountering more shear as it moves north, I feel like it's going to end up staying as a Category 3, but it's all about the same. It's right on the border of 3 and 4 here. But once we get into the 5-day range towards the middle and later days of next week out here, you see that strength begin to come down a bit. And again, that's because it's encountering more shear, it's moving into cooler waters, and it should be weakening, of course, as it moves away. That said, most of its residence time along the East Coast, it is going to be a major hurricane, Category 3 or a low-end 4. And that means there will be pretty significant impacts even without a direct hit. So here's the latest on the path, by the way. I'm going to show you 2 models here, all right? We're starting here with a look at the American ensemble, and this gives us a range of outcomes for the storm. Wherever you're seeing those pink colors, that's where the storm is stronger. And you can see our latest American model does not have any hits along the East Coast. East Coast is protected largely from this storm. That said, there is still a cluster of outcomes here that takes it pretty darn close, and that would be close enough for impacts along almost the entire East Coast here. That outcome we'll learn a lot more about as we get into the end of the weekend. Right about here, that's where we're going to be able to see whether this storm is making that sharper turn north that we're expecting, or if it's going to continue meandering west a little bit more. And a lot of that has to do with the timing of a front coming off the U.S., which is a little more complex. And if you have any questions about it, I can maybe make a separate video on that. And here's our European model. A little more concerning in that we have a larger cluster of outcomes that take it pretty close to the East Coast out here. And also, you may notice, again, those pink colors indicating higher strength. The stronger outcome would be if it takes that westerly route because there is less shear along the coastline. So especially, and we'll have an update out before this, but especially Sunday, Monday, that's going to be a crucial point in tracking this hurricane. The promising thing about all this news is that, once again, there is only one member here, one outcome that our models are picking up on that would lead to a direct landfall in the U.S., and it would be Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. It seems unlikely for anything like that to happen. However, especially as we get into, here's your Tuesday, your Wednesday, your Thursday, and Friday time range, that's where it will be passing across the U.S. The greatest impacts here would more likely be in that Tuesday to Thursday time frame as it makes its closest pass. And just how close it gets will be the question. For the record, no, I don't expect this will make landfall, but it is a powerful storm, and I would not let your guard down anyway, because we know weather is hard to predict, and until it's off our coastlines, it's always good to be wary of what could happen. So with that said, let's get into the secondary impacts of this storm. I'm going to start you guys off with a look at rain from Erin, and we're also going to take a look at wind and especially waves. Wait till we get to that part. That's going to be a pretty cool map here. Pretty colorful, we'll say. First area that may get some rain, the Bahamas, of course. It's making a dangerously close pass. There will be some storms, but I don't expect anything significant. Then as this makes a pass on the East Coast, you'll notice this is a more compact system. We don't have rain spreading that far out from the core, and where it does spread out, it's on the north and west side, which is north and east side rather, which is out over the ocean. So the good news here is that this storm is very likely to pass by without actually bringing much rain to the East Coast, but it is going to bring some other things too. In particular, waves. And anywhere you see green colors on this chart, those are definitely some wavy and choppy waters. And if you get into those yellow colors, that's rough seas for sure. So as this makes a pass by the Bahamas, you see those yellow colors showing up. Especially if you're anywhere on the Atlantic side of the Bahamas, it's going to be very choppy. But for the East Coast, you'll notice too, very choppy waters, especially along our coastlines from the Carolinas all the way up into New Jersey and even portions of southern New England. That water is going to be really, really choppy, quite rough at times as the storm moves through. North Carolina, Cape Hatteras area, you guys get battered by storms a lot. The waves are really going to be a big deal out there. Heading into the end of the week, you're looking at Thursday right now, by the way. You see those waves begin to lessen on our south and eastern coastlines, but through Friday, I expect it to be wavy across southern New England here, and even though the storm will be making a far pass to the east, this water is going to be rough. And not to mention, whenever you get waviness like this, basically throughout the entire week here, we're going to be talking about a high rip current risk for the entire East Coast. So if you are going to be going to the beach, you may want to take caution, planning on getting in the water. This could be a better pool weekend. And last but not least, the wind forecast here. As you can tell, and again, it's a more compact storm, so while there will be some breeziness on our coastlines, it's not going to end up being a super windy storm. And you can see that, especially along the Carolina coastline here as we head through Wednesday. That's where the wind is going to be greatest, up towards New Jersey, but it's breezy. We're not talking about damaging wind. That said, all of these impacts, these secondary impacts we're talking about, will be amplified if the storm does take that outside path a little bit closer to the coast. So that is what we will be monitoring closely as we go into this weekend. We want the storm to go north. We don't want it to continue going west. So like I said, we're keeping this one quick. Hey, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already as I continue to provide updates. If you have any questions, I will always answer you guys in the chat, and let me know where you're watching from. Always good to know who's on here. And in the meantime, hope you stay safe. Don't fall for any of that clickbait hype on this hurricane. If you need real information, you know where to come. I'll see you guys right back here next time.